Somebody said something to me a long time ago, and that was, everything is interesting if you look closely enough. And I honestly believe that. And so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, there's always going to be something interesting there.
Welcome to the Grounded Presence Podcast, a place for exploring authentic identity, deep community, and the path of spiritual evolution. I'm your host, Daniel Powell, and thanks for tuning in today. You're going to be glad you did, because one of the things I really like to do on the show is talk to people who have unique perspectives on life and the world. And today I'm sitting down with my good friend and world traveler, Brian Bishop. This guy has set foot in 62 different countries. 62. And not to mention, Brian's not just concerned with setting foot to soil and putting another notch in his belt, but his focus is on truly immersing himself in the experience of the culture that he finds himself in. We had a great conversation, and you're gonna love it. And partway through, my cute 2-year-old daughter makes a little cameo and tries to get in on the recording. So you have that to look forward to as well. So let's get this conversation started. Here's me and Brian Bishop talking about some of his experiences traveling. Enjoy. All right, so I got Brian Bishop here. Welcome to the Grounded Presence Podcast, Brian.
Woo-hoo. Good to be here, always.
Now, you're my most well-traveled friend.
All right.
You've just been all over.
Yeah, I think at the last count, Tammy and I have visited 62 countries altogether. And it's been a very cool experience to try to check all these places out.
Do you keep track of your mileage, like your air miles?
Not specific mileage, but I definitely, I think Tammy's kind of an accountant, so she keeps a spreadsheet of all the places that we've been to, all the places that we haven't yet visited, and we just try to keep... And it's not an exercise of just checking them off. It really is experiencing them. But we've done pretty well over those first 62. And I think the total count in the world is like 210 countries. And I think that we won't try to get to them all, because I think North Korea, for example, is out of bounds.
For now.
Yeah, for now. But the rest of them might be pretty cool.
Now, I remember a while back you said that you were in a race with some friends. A race to see the most countries.
Yeah, well, I mean, officially it started with starting from scratch and trying to hit all 50 states. So you get a United States passport, sort of, and you want to be the first one to get all 50. Starting from zero, starting here in Denver, starting from zero, and in order to get one of the states marked off, you might cross the state line, you have to go into a bar, have a local craft beer, get the bartender to sign your passport, and then get a picture of that bar that your friends can confirm, is in that particular state. Now, in order to get that American passport, you'd have to buy in. So it might be $1,000 per person. And if you get enough people in there, the first person to win the whole thing, or, to get all 50 states, would win the entire pot. So imagine if you, $50,000 if you had 50 friends trying to do it.
Not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. But yeah, we want to do something, we'd love to do something similar, countries in the world. So you might do them alphabetical order, or you might do, try to get one on each continent, something like that.
Now, if I were setting up this competition, I would stipulate that you have to steal a beer glass. All right. It's got to be like branded with where you got it from. All right. Walk out with it.
I like that a lot. Yeah, man. You'd fill up your cabinets pretty fast, but yeah.
Yeah, my cabinet's getting pretty full.
it kind of, I like the adrenaline rush of maybe taking one of those, or I might end up buying one. I don't know. Just however.
Depends on the situation.
Whatever, exactly right. However it happens.
You gotta feel good about it at least,
Indeed.
You can't prove that you stole a pint glass.
No. But, like if you're going to different countries, every country has their kind of home country beer. And the glasses are always branded with that home country beer. And so you could take, if you're in the Czech Republic, you can get a Pilsner Urquell, and bring it back. You can do something like that.
Or Coors in the States.
Hey, Coors in the States, particularly in Colorado. Exactly right.
All right, so that was 61 countries?
Well, yeah, I think Tammy's done 61, and my wife Tammy has done 61, and I've done 62. And the reason there's a discrepancy there is that I visited, and this is kind of, some people wouldn't count this. So when we lived in the UK, there are kingdoms in the UK. So there's Wales and Scotland and Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And we decided to count those as different, separate countries. So I went to Northern Ireland, and she didn't.
Okay.
So some people might not count that as country. So you may end up knocking me back to 58, but still, we've done all right.
Well, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
What time span has that been over?
We really started traveling in 2006 when we moved to London, because London was...
Oh, that's right. You moved out there, so you went all over.
That really
That's
helped.
when you really started racking them
Because
up.
when you're in London, obviously you're surrounded by so many different countries, and you can get away every weekend for dirt cheap. Over in Europe, a flight will cost as little as $29 to go to a completely new country. And so what we tried to do was, we lived there for 5 years basically, which is 60 months, and we wanted to get a different country each month that we were living in the UK. We didn't quite get there. We got about 50, but we did all right nonetheless.
That's pretty astonishing for this introvert here.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'd be in the fetal position by the third month. I'd be like, I just want to stay home for like 1 month.
No, man, I'm telling you, you get addicted to it even as an introvert. I gotta be on the road. Because you can find, even if you're in a different country, you can really find places to just chill out, but in a whole different zone.
So I haven't done much traveling, but every trip I've ever been on, even if it's just like local, it's got to be far enough away to drop my filters a little bit. But I've always learned something, or just like gotten a different filter on life. Have you found that with all your trips?
Every single one of them, no question about it.
There's not one trip that was just like, that didn't affect me and that was terrible.
Well, it's weird. When you travel, you learn as much about other cultures. Well, actually, let me turn this around. You learn as much about yourself as you do about other cultures. So one of the very first trips that we went on was to Jamaica. And I was the stereotypical ugly American at that time. I wanted my beer right now. But in Jamaica, hey, man, it's cool. You'll get your beer. Everything's fine. So, and I learned a lot about traveling on that trip, that I was just a jackass and I needed to be a lot cooler. And so with each country after that we went to, I chilled out a little bit more. And I, after 10 or 20 countries, I started to realize that if I just settle down and not try to be an American, not try to expect things that are American, things are going to be a lot better. As far as learning about the other cultures, yeah, it's really cool, especially in Europe. Each country has a different language. They have a different character. Just by chilling, just by hanging out, walking around, going into the stores, buying a beer, whatever it might be, you figure out how different cultures live, and it's really neat. And what you start to see, it's very cliched, but you start to see that people across the board have different characters, different personalities, but deep down we're all alike. We all have families. We all want to, put food on the table, and we all want to have fun. And I think the one thing that I learned is the people in countries other than the United States seem to want to have more fun than we do. We put a whole lot of emphasis on working really hard. They seem to put a lot more emphasis on enjoying life. And that may not be true in Switzerland, where they work, the bankers work hard, but for the most part, everybody they love to have their festivals and all that other stuff. So those are the kind of things that I'll learn.
The only time I've been out of the country was to Panama, and that was definitely true down there.
Yeah? They were having fun?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was it like? I haven't been to Panama.
It wasn't like crazy party city or nothing, but people were just poor down there, and they wanted to have a lot more fun than most Americans do that I've experienced.
Yeah, I wonder what the relationship is there. the places that we've been to, in Africa in particular, people don't have a ton of money, but they're not bent out of shape over it. They figure out a way to get by and to still enjoy their families, to still enjoy nature and goofing around, and it's amazing. Maybe, yeah, I would love for us to have a little bit less emphasis on working so hard and trying to amass a bunch of stuff.
I'm with you. Yeah, when I was down there, it was we went down there with my buddy and his girlfriend's family at the time. They were missionaries or something that had moved back to the States, so they were just down there for a visit. Mm-hmm. We were down there traveling. And I just remember this one thing that sat really powerfully with me was we went to visit this family, and they lived in a cinder block house, like no windows or nothing, just like no front door, just cinder blocks and whatnot.
Yep.
It wasn't a ratty house, it was just made out of cinder blocks.
Yeah.
But we sat down and they had made coffee for us. I was like, could I get some milk for this? They just spoke in Spanish, but
right.
It got translated to me that we're too poor to afford milk.
Wow.
I was like, man, I'm an American jackass. Demanding my milk.
Well, that's nothing against you. I mean, there's only one way to learn that it's like that, is for you to ask for certain things, or, question things.
So what's your favorite destination or trip that you've ever been on?
Man, it's tough to bring anything to the top. I think what I like to do is kind of pinpoint really important things that happened to me on various trips to answer that question. But I gotta say, cycling around Slovenia was very, very cool. But there were this one time that we went to Egypt with a very small group. We got to go inside the Great Pyramids of Giza, and there is nothing in there. There's absolutely, and it's pitch black, and you're going into this little tunnel. But we got into this room that was dark and dusty and smelly, and I was like, I cannot believe that I'm here. And I was suddenly I became so grateful for everything that my wife has brought to me, and everything that I have in the world and all that stuff. Right there in the center of a pyramid, I'm like, I am so grateful and so lucky to have all this happen to me. There was a time when we were in Africa where we went down there as a part of a charity to help these kids who have been orphaned because their parents died of AIDS, or died of HIV or AIDS, whatever it might be. And so we're helping the kids, we're giving them school supplies and all that. But there was a time where we met with parents who had HIV, and we were all hugging and dancing and all that stuff, and it had a profound impact on me, that they were just searching for people who would not exclude them. Because down in Africa, if people learn that you have HIV, suddenly it's like you're a leper. You can't hang around with anybody.
But they just wanted to party.
They just wanted, they just wanted people to give them a big hug and say, not that everything's going to be all right, but it doesn't bother me that you have HIV. It's perfectly fine. And so there have been a lot of experiences along the way like that just highlight things. In Africa, again, seeing all the animals in the Serengeti was super cool. Myanmar, used to be called Burma, we cycled around there and got to be some of the first visitors to a country that had just opened up. Oh. That was a trip.
That's cool.
And we got to really experience what Buddhism means to all the people there. I'm not a religious guy, but seeing these statues that were hundreds of feet high, and they put so much effort into it. I mean, traveling, just as you start talking about it and think about what you've done, these images pop into your mind, and it's such a blast to know that I've gone to these places, and I want everybody to be able to experience these things, because it'll just blow your mind. In the States, we have it kind of easy.
I just can't get over that, being able to be one of the first few people to get into a country.
Yeah,
that's gotta be cool.
That was very cool. And there's been at least one time where we were some of the in fact, it was that same trip. We were some of the first to get into Myanmar, and then it started to shut down again. So they had a military government, a real dictatorship. And while we were there, this woman was running to be the president and kind of overthrow this military dictatorship. She's been in power for a few years now, and the military dictatorship is coming back into play. And so we were some of the last visitors. So people are getting shut down now. So it's just freaking me out that we got in that perfect window.
That's got to be crazy in itself, just like seeing something that different politically.
Oh, man.
You know, instead of like the two-party system we got, you got like a military dictator and a president trying to like oust that. That's got to be like a really interesting position in that culture's history.
Well, it really is, because under the military dictatorship, people were getting killed. They were thrown in jail or whatever it might be. You know, when we look at our politics here in the United States right now, it's very divisive. We're all on one side or the other. But over there, it really was a life or death issue. It was just shocking to be in the middle of that. The guy that was taking us on our cycling tour would make sure to keep us away from some bad parts. You know, we really felt like that we got the best parts, but that we didn't really see the gritty stuff, because he felt like if he spoke out, he could be in danger. Nobody would allow us to take their picture or video them, because some of these military guys could bring the hammer down on them, or so they thought. So that was trippy.
Man, well, I got a lot of questions here I like wrote down to ask you. You're kind of rolling them all into one.
Well, yeah, ask me, and you know it'll bring up other things that I'm thinking about.
So what's the funnest experience you've had traveling?
Oh, man.
Like the one thing that you did in the one place that was just like best day ever.
You know, I think that one of them, the one that comes to mind immediately, is being in Havana, Cuba. Tammy was she wasn't feeling great, so she'd already gone to bed. It's about 9 o'clock at night. And Havana's a trippy place because it's a well-known communist place, and you have these facades of buildings. So the outside of the building looks great, but right behind the scenes, it's all crumbly and all that stuff. But anyway, I went out after she had gone to bed, and I was in the middle of the town square.
So just let me ask you a question. So it's like just a facade. It's not like the inside of the building. It's like there's like a one-dimensional thing there, and there's nothing behind it.
In many cases, yeah,
Oh,
you're
that's
exactly
weird.
right. Or if there is something behind it, it's pretty much gutted. It's really weird. And of course, all the cars down there are like 57 Chevys, because when it went communist, nobody would, they couldn't import cars from anywhere else. So they have had to keep these 57 and earlier cars alive. So, you know, it's the strangest thing. They will turn anything into a car part. I can't explain it, how they keep these things running, but it's really cool.
So the cars are like the same thing. It's like really nice on the outside, and then inside it's like, why is this tied together with baling wire?
That's exactly right. That's exactly how it is. Now, at the same time, everybody there, they all get a free education, so it's a very literate community. 97% literacy rates down there. So it's really, you know, there's one side where they don't have a lot of killer stuff, but on the other side, they have great education and great healthcare and that kind of stuff. So that's really weird.
I interrupted you. You were talking about this one night you went out.
Right.
Tammy was sick.
Well, but it really is one of those things where you start thinking about that one event, and then all these other thoughts, all these other memories come rushing in. But anyway, Tammy's sleeping. I'm wandering around Havana, 9 o'clock at night, the sun's gone down. I get into this town square, and this band had set up. There were thousands of people around the band, and everybody was salsing, and these people were grabbing me, and we're all salsing. We're just screaming and yelling, and it was just so cool for these people to just, hey, welcome me in. And, you know, the strange part of that is, in the United States, we've always looked at Cuba as being sort of the enemy. But you get down there and you're dancing with everybody. Nobody's the enemy. It's not like that at all. And so we just partied for hours and drank beers and goofed around. And what was really cool, I remember it like it was yesterday. There were these couple of old guys. They were probably in their 90s. And they would grab these young girls in their, 20s, and they'd start salsing together. And next thing you know, they have this crowd around them just going crazy because these old dudes were killing it. It was so cool. So, and then I go back to the Serengeti and seeing the animals. That is the coolest thing on the planet, without question.
I've always thought that safaris are kind of like a stupid tourist experience, but you give me a new lens for it. It's like lately I've just gotten so much out of just going and sitting somewhere like either deep in nature or relatively natural. Just like looking at the bugs and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
The other day I went out and I just like found this caterpillar. I just like followed it for a while. I'm like, this is so cool. You know?
Yeah.
But if you're like seeing lions and stuff, it's like,
No, it's really no different. I mean, the lions are big to look at, but the caterpillars are cool. Somebody said something to me a long time ago, and that was, everything is interesting if you look closely enough. And I honestly believe that. And so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, there's always going to be something interesting there. Now that said, going into Africa, having a buddy. There's this guy that we've become very close friends with. His name's Bariki. And Bariki's been our safari guide a couple of times. And taking the photos and saying, hang on, here's another flood of memories. You were asking about the most fun things. Here's one of the scariest things I've been in the middle of. Bariki has his big old Toyota Land Cruiser. It's got this pop top, and so you stand up looking at all the animals. We were in Tarangire National Park. Got down on this road, and the next thing you know, we're surrounded. I mean, surrounded by what had to be 300 to 400 elephants. And elephants can be extraordinarily dangerous. And they were everywhere. And Bariki's like, all right, everybody, don't move. Don't say a thing. Because if you piss them off, they'll start ramming our truck. And we just sat there for like an hour and a half while we're being stalked by all these elephants. But we're also seeing these baby elephants running around. I mean, it was just the coolest thing ever. Loved it. So when you go on these safaris, it's not like going to the zoo. There's a big time connection because you're trying to search the animals out. You get to see them doing their thing, and it's a whole different deal.
it brings that element of danger too,
There is.
Earlier this year I went hiking just somewhere up in Evergreen,
Yeah.
and the trails weren't marked very well, and even through that I was just like, I have no idea what trail I'm on. There's this trail that goes like 40 miles that way. I hope I'm not on that trail, so it's like my heart rate started going a little quicker. I'm like, did I make the right turn? Got a little sweaty. And then I get back and it just made the experience better.
Totally right.
There's that element of danger and like that.
Oh, yeah.
That unknown that kind of gave me some new filters to think through. Tapped into new parts of my brain.
Colorado is a place that can kill you if you get too far back there. The temperature drops, you're doomed. Similarly, down in Africa, Briki was telling us a story about he was with some customers, and they're sitting there watching these cheetahs, and two of the youngster cheetahs, probably 2 years old, jumped up onto the top of the truck and into the truck while they were sitting there.
That's cool. That's cool.
So it was extraordinarily dangerous, and I don't remember how. Bariki said he just told everybody not to move, and they'll eventually leave, and they did. Nobody got eaten up, but those are the kind of things that happen. So it is more dangerous than a lot of people would like to believe.
That's the guy to have in your corner. Because all these animals, they got like the different ways to deal with them, right? Like some you're supposed to shout at them, some you just gotta be chill. You want that guy who knows what to do.
Bariki's an expert.
You want Bariki.
Restoration safaris. Bariki is the man. Now, playing off of that real quick. Danger. We were in Beijing, China. And we're walking toward Tiananmen Square. And this guy comes up to us, and he's speaking English. And he goes, "Hey, I'm a student. Do you mind if I practice my English on you. And I was a bit naive at the time. I said, yeah, sure. Well, eventually he took us into this, air quotes, traditional Chinese tea room. We spent an hour in there and ended up with a bill that was $800. So it was a complete scam. And as we were trying to get out of this, we're not paying $800. They're saying, we're going to send you to jail. We're going to call the cops right now. So it was, we're like, wow, we don't want to go to jail in China. That would be a terrible thing. Mm-hmm. Eventually, Tammy, who's very, very tough. I'm not so tough. I was about to pay $800. Tammy goes, I'll give you $100 if you just let us out of here and we're taking off. Well, that's exactly what we did. We went back. Bad taste in our mouth at that point of Beijing because that was the first day that we were there. I look in my guidebook at the very back and it lists the tea room scam. And everything that was listed was exactly what happened. So it wasn't so much dangerous as it was just they're taking our money. They could have taken our passports or something like that. And that would be kind of dangerous, I suppose. So that's a different deal.
Mental trauma.
It was.
That sounds terrible.
It was. I really feel bad that I didn't look in the back of the guidebook first thing. I'm going to do that from here on out. But I also really feel bad that it left a bad taste in my mouth about China in general, and that's a shame because there are really great things there. But if I were going to choose a country to return to, China would be my last choice, even though it's gigantic and has a lot of things going on because of that one experience. It's a shame that it tainted me like that.
Yeah. How have your travels changed you as a whole? You mentioned that the more you travel, the more you chill out.
Yeah.
Is there any other effect that traveling so much has had on you and your outlook on the world?
Yeah, without question. I mean, it really, like we said before, it helps you appreciate what you have. Really gives you perspective on the things that other people don't have. And so you start thinking to yourself, you know what? Instead of me keeping all this money, is there a way that I can help people in Africa? Is there a way that I can help people in, South America, in Panama or Nicaragua or El Salvador or whatever? You start to forget about the things that you want. New car, new bike, whatever. And you start to say, I can do my part to help other people in the rest of the world. And it's a bit of a struggle. You don't want to give up all your money because you got to do some things, but you find yourself just wanting to help everybody else out because you know that you have it so good.
Sounds kind of like you're getting more connected with tribe human.
Yeah, without question. Again, the cliche is that people across the world are alike. And you see that, but then you see that some of that tribe needs a leg up, needs a little bit of a boost. If I'm in a spot where I can give that boost, I want to give it. Sacrifice other stuff to give that boost. And it really, you're right, big time connections.
So you might have already answered this, but what's your worst travel experience? China?
Probably that, but that wasn't huge. We only lost $100. That was, I haven't lost passports or anything like that. We've not been stuck in airports in Nairobi or anything like that. I'm sure some bad things have happened, but the good things stand out so much that I don't really remember. If I had to pick one out, Tammy and I went to Jordan. And in Jordan, we went to Petra. And you may have seen it in Indiana Jones.
That's cool.
It's really cool.
That's cool.
Because it's exactly like you see in the movie.
Monolith, like carved into the rock face, right?
Oh, talk about mind-blowing. So, and it's just like in the movie where you're walking down this thin slot canyon, and right at the end of this thin slot canyon, you see that it's a bank, believe it or not, but you see that carving in the wall, and then you come out of that slot canyon, it opens up in front of you like 10 football fields. It's gigantic, and then the rest of Petra is just all carved into the rock. It's super cool.
That's in the rock.
Yeah.
That 10 football fields.
Yeah, I mean, there's this opening square that's several football fields wide, and then the front of that.
Okay, so that's
building.
before you go into the
Yeah,
rock
so
space. Okay.
they didn't carve 10 football fields into the rock, it's true, but just kind of the whole area combined.
That's cool.
So what's in there and everything else. It's really cool. But the second day that we were there, the guy that was kind of showing us around,
This is your worst travel experience?
believe it or not.
Okay, I'm curious where this is
it's not
going.
that big a deal, but
Okay.
and it says more about me than it does about Jordan or anything else. So our guide took us up on these rocks above that carved building in the stone, and we could look down on it. And so we're up there on the top. But our guide was a guy that felt compelled to keep our group very together, very organized, didn't want us to go exploring it all on our own. You know, if I sat over here, but he didn't want me to sit there, he'd tell me that I had to move and all that stuff. And I eventually, after he gave me all these instructions, I eventually just blew up. I'm like, dude, I will do whatever I want. You know, if I want to see it from over here, I'll see it from over. And so I really unleashed on this guy who's just trying to be nice and look out for our safety. And there was a small group of 10 people with us. There is no doubt that everybody in that group, including my wife, was super embarrassed and did not want to have anything to do with me after that. But I was livid that this guy was telling me what to do all the time. And maybe that's the way the culture in Jordan is. I don't know. But again, I learned a little bit about me. I learned about what embarrasses me. And if I could take it back, I would. I'd approach it differently. Pitiful.
That's funny.
That's just embarrassing. My worst experience was my fault.
But you know what? Somebody got a good story out of that.
Yeah, I hope so. There was this dick that was on our trip, and he yelled at our guide, and we thought about pushing him off the cliff to his death.
So I'll tell you a story about the trip that me and my wife and my daughter took here just a month ago.
Okay.
I just went to hang out on the beach, but we were in DIA.
Yeah.
This is giving somebody a good story. And, you know, it's traveling with a baby, it's just difficult.
Sure.
And we were in a rush to get there, rush hour traffic, all that good stuff. So anyways, finally get there. Oh, and on top of it, you know, we did one of these like shuttles to the airport to like save on parking, and big pain in the butt.
Right.
Anyways, flight gets delayed, and it was a frustrating day. So I go walking around with my daughter because she hasn't ran around all day, so she's got tons of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, she starts to get a little tired. And I'm like, oh, I see a little ice cream shop. I'm like, cool. I'm gonna get us some soft serve, right? So I pick my daughter up, get her on my shoulders. She's like 2 years old, so still pretty easy to do that with her.
Yeah.
I put her on my shoulders, and then I get these 2 ice cream cones, one chocolate, one twist for Amy. And then I'm walking back, you know, kind of with her on my shoulders, ice cream cone in each hand. And then I got my wrists on her shins.
Right,
so
right.
she's not
Keep her
falling
up,
off,
yep.
you know. So I'm just kind of really tightly clenched in my body, you know, just walking around, being very careful. And all of a sudden, the ice cream's a little too soft, so one just slips off, right? And then I just make the hugest scene. I'm like, ah! And I just take the ice cream cone, I was like, throw it at the wall.
Oh, nice.
Or no, actually, what happened is some dude saw this happen, right? He kind of gave me an audience. He's like, I'm glad I'm not a parent, right? After the ice cream falls off, and I was just like, God damn it!
Yep.
Throw it against the wall, and it splatters. I'm like, fucking soft serve!
I mean, to me, that's the right reaction.
That's me being an idiot, but it gave him a fantastic story. So I'm really happy that I could make his day, right? Because imagine that. It's like some dude just like threw his ice cream at the wall.
Oh yeah, I would love to see that splatter. No doubt about that. That would have made a good scene. But you know, I would have felt bad for you. You know, I would have asked if I could. Well, I hope that I would have asked if I could take one of those off your hands so you could focus on something else. The other guy was being a douche canoe.
Shoot, let's see here. All right, what's your funniest traveling story?
Funniest.
I'll just give you two. You pick your favorite. Funniest traveling story, and the most impactful.
Yeah. Well, so, one of the most impactful, let's see. I mentioned Egypt, I mentioned Africa. Those are spectacular. But we went to Southeast Asia, and we went for 6 weeks. In that time, we saw Cambodia and Vietnam and Laos and Myanmar, China, and South Korea. One of the funniest pieces of that trip was you'd get into a tuk-tuk, and you wouldn't know where you were going really, and you just have to put your life in the hands of the guy that's driving the tuk-tuk. Next thing I know, we are going dead straight into oncoming traffic, and people are moving out of the way. I'm pooping in my pants the whole time, but laughing as hard as I can at the same time. It's just very bizarre. Oh, similarly, in India, I've been in 3 car wrecks, and I've only been there twice because it's just all chaos all the time. I mean, think about the craziest traffic you've ever been in. It is way worse, coming at you from every angle, and nobody cares. But I think that going back to Southeast Asia was also one of the most impactful, especially when we got to Vietnam, because of the way that I was able to see the other side of the Vietnam War. When you're over there as a tourist, you hear about landmines that are still out there. There's a museum that gives it to you from their perspective and all that. And you feel so terrible. So many people were killed, and that the Americans came in there and they were fighting for what they thought was a worthy cause. And I get that. But the way war impacts countries, surrounding countries, families, and all that, it was just horrible to see. But it was so weird because even though we're only 40 years removed from the Vietnam War, the people in Vietnam have absolutely forgiven everything that's gone on. And I just don't know if I would be able to forgive like that. And they, as a culture, they just have a tendency to say, well, that's in the past. Let's make the future better. And I think that there are so many of us that would just hold a terrible grudge. And so when we were seeing all the effects of war, but then seeing all these smiling faces that were embracing us and just having fun and trying to hang out with us all the time, that was mind-blowing.
That sounds awesome.
It was awesome, and it had, when we were in this war museum, we came out and Tammy was bawling like a baby. I mean, just crying her eyes out because she felt so bad. She had nothing to do with it, but she just felt so bad that we as a country had really messed with them as a country and as a culture.
I mean, as a tourist, too, it's like, that's got to open you up to be in a more receptive spot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no doubt.
It's like maybe that's part of it. It's like you're just in such a receptive spot that you can connect with people real easily,
Absolutely right. As a tourist, you're trying to soak up their culture and see where they're coming from, and you see the things that have influenced the choices that they make even now, and you really are open to it, and it'll affect you deeply, no question.
I was watching a travel video a while back, and I think it was on Laos. And I guess just the amount of unexploded ordnance that's there is like crazy. And I just remember seeing some of these shots of like somebody like built this little hut using like these unexploded bombs as like posts or something. It's like, what?
I know.
Like, that feels like what you're talking about right there.
Oh, it totally is. We were in Laos, and those were the things that you had to worry about.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's they live a different life than we do every single day. And giant props to them for hanging in there. Really shocking. You do come across pretty frequently people who are missing an arm or a leg, or these things happen. And if we could fix that, it would be a beautiful thing.
Here it's like we watch so much TV. It's like, somebody put a bomb in my house? Oh God. What if somebody put a bomb in my house?
I know.
Well, there it's like,
Bomb.
I'm imagining
Just don't touch
anyways,
it.
I've never been there. It's like, my house is built out of bombs. One's never exploded on me yet. We're fine.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. So, one final question here. Mm-hmm. Is there one thing that you do, something strange or something odd that you do everywhere you go? Maybe like pee on a brick wall or something. Like, that's Brian's thing. What do you do?
Yeah, my favorite thing in the world is, and it's not necessarily odd, but it is the thing that I do all the time. And I wake up very early in the morning before Tammy's gotten up, and I go out and roam around. I try to find a Monster Energy drink or a Red Bull or something to wake me up. I try to pick up enough of the language where I can speak with the shop owners to get it done. You know, how much money do I owe you, all that. And I try to get the lay of the land within probably a 1 or 2 mile radius of our hotel so that when Tammy wakes up, I can show her around. There was one time I was out at 7 o'clock in the morning in Barcelona on this very well-known road called La Rambla. It's a pedestrian mall. And I'm just walking around looking at all the cool stuff. And this woman who was clearly a prostitute asked me if I wanted to get busy at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, no, thank you very much. So strange things. I mean, on one hand, you're out there in the morning before the city is woken up and you can kind of see things unfold. But on the other hand, every now and then some weird stuff happens while you're out there and you kind of got to roll with it. And you have to figure out how to communicate that, no, I don't want to hook up with you, Miss Prostitute. You know, that kind of stuff. In Paris, I was out early in the morning going for a run, and all these kids, I say kids, but, you know, they're probably 18, 19, 20, all just pouring out of these all-night nightclubs. And it was just super cool to see them just all hungover or drunk or whatever, and, you know, just see how the night kind of winds up. So, without question, my favorite thing in the world to do is to go out early in the morning and to scout out a new city. So, that's it.
That sounds awesome.
It's fun.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
Thanks for having it.
If there's any specific country you want to know about anytime, let me know. I'm happy to.
You know, I think
know.
if I get 10%, if I go to 6 different countries in my lifetime, I'm going to consider myself a very successful traveler. So, I don't know what that says about you, but you're out there.
Well, we have different, you know, I'm much older than you are. I'm much older than you are. You know, I've been working for a long time, so we're using that dough to travel. You have a few more responsibilities than I do, but I have this funny feeling that it will become a priority eventually, and you'll see a lot more than just 10% of that. You'll see a whole bunch.
Well, I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there you have it. Brian Bishop talking about some of his many experiences traveling. Doesn't that guy have some cool stories? And those were just the ones I got off the cuff. I'm sure he could write a book with all the experiences he's had. So I'm looking forward to the next conversation I get to share with all of you. Until then, make sure to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me on both of those platforms at The Grounded Presence. And if you'd like to connect with me and send me an email, you can send those to thegroundedpresence@gmail.com. So I will catch you next time, and until then, make sure to stay grounded.